Hello everyone and welcome back. So today we're going to be talking about the second part of this Jeju-eo language. It's just such a fascinating language to me because of how different it is in Korean, and I just couldn't believe I didn't know more about it in the past, considering the language freak that I am. But anyway, I wanted to do the Aloe and U-Peak before, but I really want to close this Jeju-eo series and not have to come back to it so that it's entirely done. This is going to be a shorter video than the last one because there's only a few things left to talk about, such as the origin of the words and the honorific system, which is what mostly this video is going to be about. So to revisit the Jeju language distribution, it's spoken in the southwest part of the Korean peninsula. So it's not attached to the mainland, and there is no part of the mainland where it's spoken, unlike other islands in the world where they may have small communities of speakers on the mainland, and even the islands in between the southwest portion of the Korean peninsula and Jeju, known as Jeju Islands. It is not spoken in those places. It's not even related to the most southerly Korean dialects. It's definitely evolved enough to become its own language if you look at the evidence. So talking about Jeju's alternative vocabulary sources, Jeju has, as I mentioned in the first part of this series, the Jeju language has vocabulary from various origins. So it has Mongolian words, it's got Japanese words, it's got Middle Korean words, it has possibly words from classical Chinese and maybe possibly Manchu. I have no clue about Manchu. I'm just making that up. But as far as I do know, there are direct loans from Mongolian, Japanese, and of course words that in Middle Korean that were lost. There's a couple of examples on here. Kat, which means wife or woman, and then you have parents, oshi. So the Mongolians, as I mentioned before in the first part of this, they ruled Jeju Island directly, unlike the rest of the Korean peninsula, which was more or less indirectly controlled by them. They directly ruled the Jeju Island via the Yuan dynasty, which was Kublai Khan's dynasty after the fall of the main Mongol Empire. Most of the vocabulary that comes from the Mongolian language deals with horses. So as you can see here, the Mongolians, they raised their horses on this island, a lot of them. I'm not saying this was the place where they raised horses, but this was a place because the Jeju Island already had its own horses, like its own horses with Jeju DNA on it. So Mongolians probably saw that and they were like, oh, okay, well, there's horses here. Well, we can just bring our horses here. And they raised their horses and many more moved to the island. So these are just 4 examples that I could find. I'm sure there's more examples. There is a theory, or rather popular rumor, that says that there's hundreds and hundreds of Mongolian words. However, it appears that these claims are blown out of proportion about there being hundreds and hundreds of Mongolian words, but there are definitely quite a few words dealing with horses because of this time period. The Jeju word kadal means bridle, which comes from Middle Mongolian, I assume the Q is kada'ar, and then you have halter, which in Jeju is nokte, which I assume this is a ra, so norta in Middle Mongol, and they have a 2-year-old cattle, or a small horse, dagan, and dagaran, from 2-year-old horse in Mongol. And then a classifier for houses. Classifiers like pairs and pairs of socks, for example. So this would be kori. This comes from Middle Mongol for house, ger. Jeju differs from standard Korean. So this dot does not render. Whenever you look at the actual slides, it will actually show you the rendering. However, whenever I do it this way in this presentation mode, it doesn't show. So I've put the green here. The green here signifies that the difference is only a pronunciation or something very small. And the blue means that it's entirely different, some kind of addition. So as you can see here, some of it is pretty identical. The green is simply just pronunciation differences. There aren't really many differences between the two, but then you get the blue, and there's plenty of blue on this thing. So, you got mekdak and da, the first word in the sentence, and then you got deal after pyekyol, and then you have this in Korean. So you have ro in both of them, which is like toward somewhere. And then you have ka and kan, chaldus hall, nan after po. So I didn't put the romanization for these in there, and I'm sorry for that. I'm just letting you know about how different these two can be, and this is just a simple sentence. This is using pretty simple language, like there's no modern terms in this. This is based on like shamanic recitals and stuff. It's already looking pretty different in here. A lot of times in Jeju, the vowels can sound extended compared to standard Korean. And that's just one of the features of the language. So on to speech levels, or rather we might call it respect levels. Jeju has its own honorifics system, which is quite different from Korean's. You could say it's a simplified version of standard Korean's honorific system. Today in modern Jeju, there are 4 speech levels. And in the past, there was a 5th one, which was documented in the shamanic recitals. However, this is not used in the modern version of the language. Another note is that in the honorific system, each speech level has its own rules for dealing with different suffixes, and different suffixes have different rules for combining with things. So it really just depends on how you're using it. The 4th level, or the highest, the formal and honorifics level, there are very, very few suffixes which can be used with it. So it seems that it was already on its way to evolving out, or it's falling into disuse. So the 4 levels of honorifics in Jeju. So the first level is the informal and plain level. This is probably going to be the most common one, which people every single day use. Older speakers are going to use this with younger people if they're emotionally close. It's just the day-to-day conversation level. And then you have the formal and plain. So this level will be used by an older speaker when they're speaking with younger adults. However, this form is going to be used when they're young enough, but they're not old enough to be addressed with honorifics, but they're not close. It could just be like, this older man who lives in a specific community, and this young person, he might know him, like it might be like his dad's son, and he's grown up, like he's old enough to drink or something, but they don't really know each other. They'll probably use formal and plain. And then you have the informal honorific. This form is extremely interesting, and going back to what I was saying about this, it's not possible to make requests. So I have no idea how you would make requests in the informal honorific if you just use the formal and plain, or if you resort to the formal honorific system. I have no clue. This is considered to be one level down from the formal honorific. The informal honorific system, honestly, I have no clue what the difference is between this one and the informal on the plain, or the formal on the plain. I don't know when you would even use the informal honorific. It's very, very unclear. There's a ton of suffixes and a ton of rules that go with it, but there's really not much information about what distinguishes this from the rest of them. I'm sorry I don't have more information. There's just not a lot of information available about it. And then we have the formal honorific system. As I mentioned in the last slide, the formal honorific system is very limited in its use, at least in the amount of suffixes. There's said to only be 6 suffixes that you can use with it. So it's very interesting. It makes me think that based on how few suffixes can be used with it, that it's either starting to fall into disuse, or at the time of the Jeju uprising and the modernization of South Korea and all that it was already on its way out the door. But I'm not 100% sure about it. I just based this on what I see and how few suffixes you can use. Because there was already a 5th one, which is out, and it's only basically literary now. So that's just what I based that on. So the informal and the plain. So in this sentence, Mansu is a name. Mal means speech, like in Jeju Mal, one of the ways you can refer to the Jeju language. And then you have Chal, which is an adverb meaning well. And then you have Kauta, which I believe means to talk. Mal also means speech, so Mal Kota might mean to talk, I assume. And then Chu, this suffix is used whenever you want to assume something and you don't have direct evidence of it. And it can also be used to say, I don't really have direct evidence of this. Do you have something to dispute, or do you have something to say about it? It kind of has this meaning. And a lot of suffixes in Korean have this extended meaning where it can be kind of hard to translate into English, but that's what makes Koreanic languages very interesting. And then in the second example, you have n, which is you in the singular form, and then you have, and I actually have this word, so which means what, it's unique, because in Korean it's mual. I don't know if you heard that, but that was a native speaker pronouncing the word for what. There's this dictionary called Jeju-eo Talking Dictionary. It only has a couple hundred entries in it, but I found a couple words in my examples and decided I would play it out. This word means what, and then you have chi, which means wash, and then you have this word men. It's used for both statements and questions. This suffix is only used if there is an emotional connection, like if they're intimate. You know, if they know each other, they're friends or something, they know each other, then you can use this. And this is unique to the informal and the plain speech level. Now the formal and plain speech level. This first example, this is a word that is unique to Jeju. Dosegi kot. So dosegi is a pig, and kot, which in Standard Korean, I believe means just thing, is father. And then you have mok, which means to eat. And then you have alt, which is the past. And then you have da, which is a sentence ender. This is said to be called an unmarked formal statement ender. And whenever you would look in the dictionary, this is what verbs would end in. It's also used in statements and other levels of speech as well. And then in the second example, you have ne, and this at the end, it is a topic marker. It's the same in Korean, in Standard Korean, I believe. In this example, you have the word musa, which means why. This is another example of a word that is unique to Jeju, which in Korean, this is a different word. Ar, which is to be cold. And then you have on, which appears to be the present tense, dia, which can be spelled ya with the second letter being a different letter representing it's basically just combining the e and the a together to make dia. Why are you cold? So this particle it's a question, and the person that you're addressing to would have direct experience in whatever is happening. So why are you cold? I'm not exactly sure why you would use this particular thing. It's almost kind of like they have been cold before, so you ask them this. The explanation for this particle is that it is a question particle about direct experience to the person who the question is being addressed to. So informal and honorific. So in this one, on the side here in blue, I have put and so is the marker for an informal honorifics. The first example here, I have an audio file available for. So egg is, I'm not sure if you heard that. That is a word that is unique. Another word that is unique to Jeju, because in Korean it would be either talagyal or kyeran. I'm not sure what the difference between those are. Dekki means to throw away. And ku, this k, I'm not exactly sure what that is. I believe it's just emphatic suffix. And this u, which that k sound is attached to in that character, in that set, that is the honorific. That is the informal honorific. And then you have gua, which can also be guang, depending on what the sounds of that particular honorific sentence is, and all kinds of other rules. And will you throw away the eggs? So a note about this, you see the teki kugwa. The sound symbolism here, you hear all this. This is not really used in Standard Korean as far as I know. In Jeju, whenever you hear these sounds, these hard sounds at the end of the sentence, it signifies that something is emphasized or that it's emphatic. I was going to make a separate slide about this, but it just made perfect sense to just talk about it here because there's a perfectly good sentence to talk about. So why not? And then in the second example, I have 물, which means water, and then chil, which means to draw, and then we have ot, which is the past tense marker, and then we have u, which again is the informal honorifics suffix, and then we have da, which simply is just used for statements. There's nothing else to say about that. So she or he drew water. And the last marker, the formal and honorific. This, as I said, is I'm not going to say it's not very used because I haven't studied this language and I haven't really gone to depth of this language, so I'm not 100% sure about it. But in this sentence, k means those, and shin or shoes. Amansu again is a name, and then you have shindi, which is a dative marker, which is completely unique to Jeju. That's something else. There's a lot of prepositions in Jeju which are just, they don't exist in Standard Korean. So they may have been in Middle Korean, but they don't exist in Standard Korean. And so shindi can mean for or to. In this sentence, it means for. Chok, which means to be small. And then up. So as I have here on the left side in blue, up is the marker for the formal honorific. And then we have ne. So ne is, it signifies evidentiality. Evidentiality it means something that has evidence for it. So if you say like allegedly blah blah blah, supposedly blah blah, I know that blah blah blah, or it seems to me that blah blah, you're basing something on the evidence that you have before you. And that's basically what this is. There's also another marker, de or di, which can be used. I don't know what the difference is. They may have the same meaning, but there was no explanation given in my source about this. So, and da is simply a sentence ending. Again, just deals with statements. And then the last sentence, igo means this, mog means to eat. And then again, up, which is the formal honorific. And then so, which is a formal request. So this so does not exist in the informal honorific system because, as I mentioned a few slides ago, the informal honorific system does not have a way to express a formal request to someone. And that's that. I have some questions for the people who are watching this video. So if you speak the Jeju language, or you have relatives or friends who speak it, do you know any other false friends like konda, which I believe means to wash your hair in Standard Korean, and it means to wash your body in Jejueo, or other unique words of Jeju like toksegi or musha? And if you speak Korean, can you understand Jejueo? If so, how much of it do you understand? Because there are a lot of words that are identical to Korean. I'm sure there are sentences in which it's very intelligible. So how much of it can you understand? And the last question, for people who don't speak it, or who have just simply watched it, or who have seen a few examples but never really dived into it, what kind of comparison can you make between Jeju-eo and Seoul Korean? Is it like Scots in English? Is it like Ladino in Spanish? Because Ladino has archaic features in Spanish that aren't used anymore, as well as words from Turkish and Hebrew and other sources. Or do you think it's something that represents something more distant? Leave your observations or your answers in the comments. Komapsoda. Thank you everybody for watching. The last Jeju-eo video only got 50-something views. Usually I get more than 100 views. So if you like this video and you watch the entire thing, just do me a favor and send this to whoever you can. Share this video. I'm trying to get the word out about all the rare languages in the world that I can get my hands on. I'm trying to spread the news about them, share my love for rare and endangered languages and obscure languages with the world. So please share this, push it out, send it to whoever you have, like this video, comment on it, do whatever you have to do to get this out, because YouTube's doing something right now and more people should know about these languages. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.